Race 2 of the weekend then in the Porsche Club Motorsport Boxster Cup here at Oulton Park, and once again the wind slightly picking up, but the cloud coverage just heading away, a little bit more clear sky out there as we get ready for our second race of the day. An excellent race in the opening one where Max Watt was able to take victory over Bertie Bream and Barrington Darcy. Mike Thompson up from the rear end of the grid as well to get up into 4th position and was in the hunt for a podium. Will have to do so once again as the likes of Thompson, of Bream, of Scott Evans, Perry Darling and David Hussey as well will all start from the rear of the field as they did in the previous race, courtesy of various infringements in qualifying. So you can see there on the formation lap, the drivers were heading their way round, and so we'll take a look at the starting grid. It's the same front row as we had in the race earlier on in the day. Max Watt alongside Faye Noble Evans. However, behind that is where we have the change. Barrington Darcy in 3rd position. Matthew Shears will be starting from 4th on that second row of the grid. We've got Ben Grucock then, who struggled a little bit with pace, dropped from 3rd down to 6th in the previous race. We'll be starting this one from 5th position alongside Stuart Warner as well on that 3rd row. Then it's Martin Mason and Tony Levi starting from 8th position on the grid. Behind that it's Brendan Hafnam and Tom Hale inside the top 10 positions, with Eric Bridges and Craig Horvath, who of course retired from the race earlier on. I've not 100% seen if he's back out on the circuit. We'll have to check that one in a second. Simon Dye will start from 13th position alongside Eva Nolan, and then there'll be a little bit of a break back before we get to David Hussey, who'll be starting from 15th alongside the champion leader in Mike Thompson. And then it's Bertie Bream from 18th position, with the final row of the grid going to Scott Evans and Perry Darling then on the field. So you can see the 19 cars then working their way around the circuit. I'm keeping my eyes wide open for the car of the number 25 of Craig Horvath to see if he was actually able to get that car repaired, because I was not completely sure after what was a fairly sizable incident into the barrier on the exit of Old Hall, and I don't believe I see that car there. Obviously we'll get an update as soon as the race begins from race control, but alas, I do believe that car might be missing from the second race of the weekend. On to the final corner they go, and then of course out towards the grid. You can see those final few positions as they did in the previous race, aiming to work their way up. All those drivers further down, those that we expect to move their way through the order pretty well. Bertie Bream went from 17th all the way up to 2nd in the previous race, and of course he'll be starting from 17th once more. So all the cars then into position, and of course the 25 minutes will be placed ahead of us. Faye Noble Evans will be starting alongside Max Watt on that pole position. Watt on the left hand side in the yellow and black car. The driver starting from pole position. All the cars are in place, the lights are on, and for the second time this weekend we are underway here at Oulton Park, and it's Max Watt leading the way from Faye Noble Evans as they head their way down to the first corner. Not a great start from Faye Noble Evans, as Barrington Darcy with the pink stripes over the roof of the car now charge their way down the inside of the first corner. Bit of side by side behind all of that, as I think that might have been Warner, Shears that was pushed off the road a little bit there as Warner was trying to come through. Ben Grucock on the inside as well in that bright green car also, but it does seem as though Max Watt is able to hold on to the lead of the field. Barrington Darcy up then into 2nd position, and Ben Grucock has moved up into 3rd. Faye Noble Evans down from 2nd all the way into 5th position at present, as we see Tony Levi there in what is 6th spot, or 7th spot rather, trying to find their way back into the mix. There's Ben Grucock in the bright green. Curious to see already how many positions have been made up by those behind, and whether there's been any major movements forward from some of those a bit further down on the grid. The likes of Mike Thompson, who you see working their way through this black and red car, of course the championship leader, coming into this weekend here at Oulton Park. You can see further in the background, I think everyone's been a little bit more patient on the start of this race. There is the 46 of Tom Hale, just the back end of the top 10. Meanwhile, there is side by side behind all of this as they work their way into the brakes, then flipping through the right-hander, back out through the left and then back out through the right. This of course is Hafner towards the back end of the top 10 behind here as they work their way now up Clay Hill. It's Max Vaught continuing to lead the race. There he is, comfortable lead over over Barrington Darcy, over Ben Grucock Dent, who are the top three. Of course, those three drivers are the ones who, some of the ones that went on to go and finish in the top group. Of course, Max Vaught winning the previous race. Barrington Darcy would end up being in third position. Ben Grucock down into sixth, desperately looking for a podium. Struggled a little bit with late race pace in the previous one of the Porsche Club Motorsport Boxster Cup. Across the line then for the first lap to complete is Watt ahead of Darcy, ahead of Grucock, ahead of Mason then in fourth position, and then Faye Noble to look at here. Then it's Shears behind in sixth position, who's dropped a couple on the opening lap. Then Levi there in seventh, then Hafner, Warner, Hale. We've got Bridges, Breen. Up 5 positions on the first lap is Bertie Breen. Mike Thompson up 3 positions into 13th. Then Simon Dye, Hussey, Darling, Evans, Scott Evans that one being, and Nolan. And confirmation there is no Craig Horvath out on the circuit as expected. I kind of was a bit surprised it was even on the timesheets, to be honest. But no, indeed, Craig Horvath not getting out onto the circuit as we were expecting. So, battle for 4th position then. Mason ahead of Noble Evans, and Noble Evans not quite able to get down the inside as they head their way through the banked hairpin at Shell Oils. Behind that also a battle is Shears trying to keep Levi at bay, and is doing so just for the moment. I'm sure there is going to be the opportunities, especially once they're joined by the likes of Bertie Bream and Mike Thompson, and of course all those behind. I'm sure Scott Evans, who had decent pace in the previous race, will also throw their way into the mix. Here's some side-by-side as well. There's a couple of positions switch over. There then, in the black and red, of course, that's Mike Thompson. Ahead of him, with the silver and the orange, that was also Bertie Bream. The bright blue car with the red wheels, that was Scott Evans, who also came through. And there is Nolan, who had one spin in the previous race. Of course, that was going through the exit of the Britain's chicane. Of course, just a bit of a spin round to the previous race, however, in a solid position in this one to at least, hopefully not spin round. Obviously, the conditions might be a little bit easier. I don't know. It's more so, obviously, keeping your eye in the race and using the experience you've had from the previous one just to keep it on the road around what is already quite a difficult circuit, especially with some of the higher curbs, which you do get, especially through the Britain's chicane. The race starting to space out slightly with Watt, Darcy, Grucock, Mason, Noble Evans, Shears, Levi and such. This is a little bit further back where you've got the number 8 of Bertie Breen, now onto the rear end of Hafner. So this is for 9th position. As Max Watt sets the fastest lap of the race. Bertie Breen is the one that's charging up to the rear end and is looking down the inside of Hafner there in the background. They work their way now out onto the lakeside stretch down into the island bend, and of course Bertie Bream trying to find the way through, looks to the inside and commits to it. Brilliant move there from Bertie Bream. Mike Thompson, I'm sure, will be close in tow behind to try and make sure the same thing is going to happen. However, you might see Bertie Bream try and run away with this. Was faster at siphoning their way through the field in the previous race than Mike Thompson, and might be showing that once more. Next one, of course, is Warner in the 51 to try and get past for Breen, but here comes Mike Thompson, also trying to make the move on Hafner in the 13. There is the switch between the two very similar liveried cars, the two teammates, and that will see the 8 of Bertie Bream getting ahead of Warner. Mike Thompson also clearing up to get inside the top 10 after passing Hafner then. So 10th position goes the way of Thompson, 8th position for Bertie Bream. And ahead of all that, it's a 3.7 second lead for your race leader, Max Watt, looking to go back-to-back here and take the clean sweep at Oulton Park. Bertie Bream already on the rear end of Levi, looks down the inside, can't quite do it as they head their way into the final corner. There's Mike Thompson making the move in the background though, commits to it, and beautifully judged from Mike Thompson. So one more spot for him and it's right onto the rear end of Bertie Bream, who's been unable to work their way past Levi up into 7th position. There goes the look to the inside at Old Hall, the big commitment into the opening corner of the track. And that there is Bertie Bream then moving up into 7th position at present. All of the cars ahead have some fairly large gaps between them though, so this swift progress coming in from the likes of Bream and Thompson has been much easier. There goes a spin then for Levi, who's gone out wide through what is effectively the second corner of the circuit at Cascade. You could classify it as the third if you account for Denton's as well, which is a flat-out right-hander. But that car getting spun round as there was a look to the inside from Mike Thompson, finding his way through. As I was saying, there's going to be a little bit of a taller margin for these drivers to work their way up now, mostly courtesy of these slightly larger gaps. You've got Mason and Noble Evans. Those two are relatively close for 4th and 5th position, but ahead of that is 1.2 seconds to Grewcock. Ahead of that is 1.7 seconds to Barrington Darcy. Ahead of that is 5 seconds as there's another spin. Is it going to keep out of the barrier? Just about there for Hafner. That was a big old slide and a big spin indeed. Dropped right the way then to the rear end of the field. A little bit chaotic there for Hafner, and I'm sure that would have been a heart and mouth moment. Onto the brakes as hard as you can to try and keep it out of the barrier, and just about did the right thing. Of course, you don't want to get on the brakes too hard. If you lock up, you'll actually, well, you won't slow down as much, and you'll end up in the barrier. So even though you're spinning and out of control, there's still always something that you can potentially do just to try and regain the control of the car. And Hafner there doing basically all that was in his control. 17 minutes left to go, which means that there's 8 minutes down. And it is still Watt leading. 7 seconds now the lead. The last lap was 2 seconds faster than Barrington Darcy. It does seem as though Max Watt is going to take a relatively easy clean sweep here at Oulton Park. For the likes of Shears though, for the likes of Faye Noble Evans, for the likes of Mason, for the likes of Grewcock, for the likes of Darcy as well, there is still a lot left to go in this race, including the likes of Bream and Thompson, who are right there now knocking at the door. There comes a look to the inside then, goes the number 60 of Levi on the return up the order, having just made that single position up, and makes their way past the 18 rather of Nolan, who now drops back into last position on the grid. This is back up then to the battle for 6th, as we've got Bertie Bream now knocking at the door to move up into 6th spot, trying to get past Shears and Noble Evans. Watt is running away. Like I said, it was 2 seconds it was cleared out on the lap. To give that a little bit of context, 57.198 for your race leader Max Watt, 59.205 for Barrington Darcy, 59.184 for Ben Grewcock. For Faye Noble Evans, it was a 2-minute .1, and that's why the door's potentially being opened for those behind, especially with a mistake going in to the Britain's chicane. Shears almost came through, but this could be the opportunity that Bertie Bream needs. Mike Thompson's closing his way in the black and red car behind even that. There goes Ben Grewcock. There goes Mason. There is Noble Evans, and there is the move then for Bertie Bream in the silver, orange and black car, working his way up now into 6th position. Could be 5th by the start of the next lap though. Not quite going to try and force the issue here into the final corner. You can see the was effectively the number plate on the front of the car has been tapped somewhat on Bertie Bream's car as it drags along the floor. I'm sure that'll pop off in no time, and probably will be hearing a lot of grinding as he works his way down the inside on Faye Noble Evans. Yeah, can probably hear that scratching along the surface of the road, but you just kind of have to keep carrying on and not really think about it, not really worry about it, and because it's obviously from our angle we know there's nothing serious there. As there goes Faye Noble Evans off the road for a bit of a spin. Noble Evans is round and will flick it back round and send it back on its way, but unfortunately Faye Noble Evans having the same issue there that we saw from Levi at the previous corner, was going out a little bit too wide and spinning the car around out of control. Big shame for Faye Noble Evans, starting from the front row in both races this weekend, but no real major results to speak of when it comes to the racing, when it comes to the big points being paid out. So that is a bit of a shame. For Bertie Bream, this is the time to pull away from Mike Thompson, and that gap has already grown a fair amount to the car behind in Shears. But here comes Thompson down the inside to take over that spot from Shears and move up into 6th spot in the number 6. position switched round. Mike Thompson getting past and is now running in that 6th position. Not even halfway through this race yet, and the gap is already basically 10 seconds at the front end of the field, and it continues to grow at an alarming rate for those behind. The only question mark is, and even then this is a stretch, is Max Watt maybe overdoing the tyres? Less so for being caught during the actual race, but more so if there is a safety car of some description, if that then would open the door for someone else to close up on this driver here, who's very much won with the circuit. 56.6, best lap of the race, not set on the previous one, but set on the one before that. The lap just complete was a 58.357 for a 59.109 and a personal best lap for Barrington Darcy. It wasn't enough to keep the gap under 10 seconds. It's now 10.3 for your race leader with 12 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. The gap grows and grows and grows. Here's Faye Noble-Evans against Scott Evans, a bit further down the order. This is for the final position inside the top 10. Scott Evans from the rear end of the field, Faye Noble-Evans from the front end of the field. And Scott Evans will try and find a way through on Faye Noble-Evans. There comes a look to the inside then for Barrington Darcy. Sorry, for Barrington Darcy, I meant for, of course, Bertie Breen down the inside into 4th position. Barrington Darcy is currently running in 2nd and is a little bit ahead of this battle. But yes, indeed, Bertie Breen then up into 4th position, having got past Mason. Thompson is the next one to try and work their way through. And it is a bit of a gap ahead of Breen, around 2 seconds up to Grucock. The opportunity there, definitely up for grabs. Previous lap time from Breen was a 58.0. Previous lap time for Grucock was a 59.9. Barrington Darcy in 2nd position is not necessarily out of reach for Breen, and if that is the case, if he's able to get through, it means that we'd potentially have the same top 5, or at least the same podium anyway. 2 races in a row, because it was obviously Watt, then it was Breen, and then it was Darcy. We could very much repeat that one once more. The top 5 in the previous race. Whoa, as there comes a look down the inside from Thompson, forcing the issue there is Thompson making his way past Mason, and this is the battle now for 4th position, 5th position rather. So Mason dropping back to 6th in 1 lap from 4th position. The top 5 in the previous race was Max Watt, Bertie Breen, Barrington Darcy, Mike Thompson and Faye Noble-Evans, with Ben Grucock behind that in 6th. And of course, 5 of those drivers are inside the top 5 now. However, obviously they're in the wrong order. Faye Noble-Evans, unlikely to work their way back up into 5th position. So the chances of getting 2 top 6s in a row being exactly the same, very unlikely. The chances of getting the top 3 the same, there is a distinct possibility, because for that, Breen needs to get past Barrington Darcy. Obviously, he needs to also clear the 86 of Ben Grucock as well. But it is possible, at least, with 10 minutes left to go. In fact, you can see how possible it is, because Barrington Darcy's being closed in on by Ben Grucock and by Breen as well. And to be fair, Thompson's not that far behind. I know the gap for the race lead came down a little bit, but I think that's more just controlling the gap ever so slightly is what we saw that a little bit earlier on in the day. The gap was closed down and still was able to respond late on in the race, seeing the likes of Breen, Darcy and Thompson closing in, and then responded once that gap had got below around 2 seconds, and ended up winning by 2.3 across the line. Obviously the gap for the win might well be an awful lot larger in this one, based on where things currently lie in this race. See there, Ben Grucock defending a little bit, just leaving the car ever so slightly in the middle of the road with 9 minutes left. The opportunities aren't that far away for Breen to come through, and there's Mason round. I believe that is indeed Mason, who has spun around. I'll correct myself. It won't be Mason. Any panic in the Mason fan group. That will be the Tony Levi car, which has spun round there in the number 60. both of them red, but one of them with Coca-Cola written all over the side of the car. But alas, it was a bit of a shame to see. It's easy to spin round though, especially that part of the circuit. We've seen it a couple of times already today. And there comes then the charge for the number 8, Bertie Bream, trying to close up to the rear end of Ben Grucock. 8 minutes left to go. Chance of a podium, very much there. Chance of a second place might be slipping through the fingers. Mike Thompson doesn't quite have the speed to close into this group, sits back around 2 seconds off the rear end of this fight for the podium. They head up and over the crest of the hill at Hilltop and then into the Hislop chicane. The car's dancing around ever so slightly as they'll work their way through this chicane. A little bit too deep though from Ben Grucock. This could be the best opportunity for Bertie Bream. Didn't quite nail the exit at Knickerbrook though. It was just a little bit overdriven through the middle part of that Hislop chicane, it must be said, for Grucock. And you might have thought that would give it too tight of a line going through Knickerbrook, but alas, the position did not switch on the run into Druids. You've got to be pretty quick into Druids, and again, you've got to get that good drive off the corner at Knickerbrook. I'm just surprised that there wasn't the opportunity there for Bream. Oh, that is going to be the opportunity though. Big and out wide. There goes Grucock. And there goes through then Bertie Bream up into the podium positions after starting from the rear. Started from 17th, moved up to 2nd in the previous race. Started from the same place on the grid, worked now up into 3rd. Going to be back-to-back 2nd spots for Bertie Bream. And we get past Barrington Darcy. Repeat the podium of earlier in the day. Make it identical to the one earlier on in the day. The only major difference between this one and that one would be the winning margin at the moment. Easy for me to say, which of course at present is 11.3 seconds. One of the largest that we've seen in this championship. Is absolutely flying away from the field. These are only 25-minute races. They don't have many laps. We dealt with 11 laps in the race earlier in the day. Of course, a slight safety car intervention took away a couple of those laps, because obviously we'd be expecting with the pace they run around this circuit for it to be a 13-lap race. So we had a couple of those taken away. At the moment though, Max Watt looks like he could do this all day. We're about to complete the 10th lap of proceedings with 3 more left to go. A little bit of lap traffic up ahead, and I'm sure that will be dealt with swiftly by Max Watt as he gets up to the rear end of Nolan. I'm sure he'll be knocking right at the door. Nolan's last lap time was a 2:11.6. Max Watt's was a 1:58.178, still a second faster than the rest of the field, because Barrington Darcy behind 58.9, so that's 3/4 of a second basically slower than your race leader. Bertie Bream's right onto the rear end of Barrington Darcy, who did set a PB lap. With 5 minutes left to go though, that PB lap might not mean anything as they cross the line and head their way down into the first corner. The gap for the race leads 12.5 seconds now, and the gap for 2nd to 3rd is absolutely nothing, 0.4 of a second. Ben Grucock's got 1.5 seconds back to Mike Thompson, who isn't really setting fast enough lap times to close down on Grucock. As long as there's no mistakes, I almost don't suspect there will be a recovery drive onto the podium, or even a 4th for Mike Thompson, meaning that there would be a podiumless visit to the Oulton Park circuit. Still would be a couple of top 5s though, so it wouldn't be that disappointing. As there comes a look to the inside and a little bit of contact as well onto the rear. A misjudgment there from Bertie Bream, just tapping the rear end of Barrington Darcy's number 27. Thankfully the touch was after most of the braking had been completed, because if you get that touch at the start of the braking zone, it'll push you forward and then you won't be gaining anything. A bit of a note from the race control, I've not been told exactly how large the time penalty is, but there is going to be a time penalty for Ben Grucock and for Hussey as well, who's down in 15th position. The pair of those, as far as I'm aware, will be getting a time penalty post-race. Not sure as to what that's for. Alas, I'll update you as soon as race control tell me. I was having a little look, but I can't see anything as to what the reason was for that safety, for that time penalty rather. But Ben Grucock and David Hesse will both be receiving post-race time penalties, courtesy of incidents. For the number 44 as well, for Scott Evans is a 5-second post-race time penalty. So race control dishing out a few here as they work their way through. Of course, Scott Evans is running in 9th position, Mike Thompson is running in 5th, and Hesse is running in 15th. The 3 cars there all receiving post-race time penalty. This is the opportunity though that was required. Finally, Bertie Bream has got alongside Barrington Darcy, and by the time they've got into the brakes into the first corner to start the penultimate lap of the race, Bertie Bream up then into 2nd position. Barrington Darcy down to 3rd, the exact same podium as to what we had in the race earlier on this morning. Mike Thompson could get through and make it the same top 4, but yeah, that's pedantic. We don't need that. It's fine. I'll take the same top 3. It's always entertaining as a commentator when we get these stats and stuff where things line up and it looks pretty and it looks right. Obviously, the results don't tell the story of the race though sometimes. And if you'd see that, you'd be like, oh well, yeah, I guess it's just the same podium, so it makes it very, very similar races. Well, the fact that Bertie Bream's been able to work his way from the rear end of the field all the way up onto the podium, 2 consecutive races around Oulton Park, very, very telling as to the ability level. This is at the back end of the field in the battle for 17th position. Tony Levi versus Nolan as well. Between Hussey rather. Let me correct myself. Hussey's dropped back a couple of positions, but also has a post-race time point as well to be aware of. This is the battle for 4th. Ben Grucock versus Mike Thompson. It's Grucock in the bright green. It's Thompson in the black and red. As they fight over 4th and 5th position with 90 seconds left on the clock. Will they be able to switch around? Will Thompson be able to work his way through in the 4th position as he did in the previous race? Grucock certainly having better fortune in this race, but do remember that Grucock does have a post-race time penalty anyway, but still having better fortunes, at least showing-wise, in this race regardless. Last lap of the race started by your race leader, Max Watt. Into the distance, he's going to go. I have now got the time penalty. It's a 5-second post-race time penalty for Ben Grucock. So at the moment, with how things stand, I believe would still finish in 5th position. He's actually relinquished that now to Mike Thompson, and with the gap being 9 seconds back to Mason in 6th spot, Ben Grucock will gain that penalty, but also won't lose anything courtesy of it, because it will still be 5th spot for the number 86. There's Bream, and there in the yellow and black was Max Watt. That is the size of the margin. They can basically wave at each other as they were driving past each other on this portion of the circuit. As you loop back round on yourself, speaking of looping back round on yourself, get on the brakes there, is the 64 of Hussey, rolling backwards ever so slightly, finally gets it into gear, gets the car restarted and gets rolling. It is quite uphill there, obviously it wasn't in reverse. The car was just rolling backwards courtesy of the incline there to Hilltop. But alas, that was a bit of a scary spin, as we'll allow our podium to go through. There's 2nd place, and next will be Barrington Darcy to work their way through. These are all obviously still yet to go through a few corners before they finish their lap. Way ahead of them is this driver here, Max Watt, dominant in the opening race of the day, and dominating once more. And well, if you thought the race earlier on in the day was actually properly dominated, well, think again, because this one most certainly has been. Max Watt completely in control here at Oulton Park to take the clean sweep of the weekend in the number 23. It's Max Watt on top once more here at Oulton Park as he crosses the line to win race 2 of the Porsche Club Motorsport Boxster Cup at Oulton Park. A long 15-second wait back to see the drag race that will have Bertie Bream leading the likes of Barrington Darcy and Mike Thompson across the road. It'll be the exact same top 4 as it was in the race earlier on in the day. Grucock across the line, 5 seconds added to the race times, taken back to 23 seconds. So it seems like he's far away off, but obviously isn't. Still manages though to hang on to 5th position, courtesy of where Mason was. And there is a big off at the final corner. We've got, I think, That's the 51 of Warner, who is off at the final turn. Might need a recovery, but alas, the race is already over, so no major dramas. Faye Noble Evans into 9th, then courtesy of Scott Evans' 10-second post-race time penalty. We won't see Warner across the line, and so it will just be, well, probably it'll be right at the rear end of the field then for Warner, as we'll wait for the next one to cross the line to confirm themselves in 11th position. For Max Watt, though, 14 seconds across the line to be victorious, and the talk of the fastest lap, a 56.673 then, that you can see in your bottom left. Looking at other drivers that we know are very, very fast in this grid, Bertie Bream, 57.4, Mike Thompson, championship leader, 58.0. These are their best laps in the race, and they are seconds off of Max Watt's lap time. That's it's been an incredible margin and a dominant race as Stuart Warner receives the assistance from the marshalling team. Very similar livery car. He was able to work his way up to the rear end of the field onto the podium once more. And of course, waving to the marshals, waving to the crowd, waving to the other drivers as well. Obviously, these drivers, I'm sure they are grateful of the support they get around the calendar. Not only from the fans and stuff that will come out, the family, the team personnel that are around the circuit, but of course of all of the marshals. They finish their second and final race of the day and of the weekend. Let's take a look then at provisional results then, as Max Watt was able to take victory by 14 seconds over Bertie Bream. Barrington Darcy and Mike Thompson make it the same top 4 2 races in a row, with Drew Cock in 5th. Mason in 6th position with Shears, Darling, then Noble Evans and Scott Evans down in 10th position, before we'll get a bit of a gap back to Hafner, who would finish just over a minute off the lead of the race, so down in 11th spot in beat. With Tom Hale in 12th, then Bridges, Levi with a spin to 14th, Simon Dye into 15th, Warner a retirement on the last lap, Hussey and Nolan both finishing a single lap down in this race. Of course, this weekend does mark the halfway point in the championship, and the next time we'll be racing will be on the 2nd of August, taking on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. The full layout, we've already raced the National earlier on in the year, ready for the Grand Prix layout, but as of course over a month away. So until then, have a great summer. Thank you for watching the Porsche Club Motorsport Boxster Cup. Of course, plenty of Porsche action still yet to come through the day with the Club Championship as well. So we'll see you then as we'll get ready to go racing at Silverstone in August. Bye-bye.